I wanted to come up with a bunch of these with Neon of just not in a, oh, you guys are bad and awful, but we could all just learn and grow. Um, that's something that was a big takeaway from me when I worked at my former company. We had one of our values was learn and grow. And for me personally, there's always something you can learn, even if it's something as simple as a hobby. You're always practicing your skills, and roleplay very much is a skill. It's just like anything else. It's like getting good at hitting center screen when you're playing an FPS. It's just like learning how to have social interactions with people in person. That's a hard skill to learn. That's hard for me. Roleplay, to me, just as much of a skill. It's something that the more you practice, you can get better at. If you don't do it a lot, it's very much you can, what's the word I'm looking for? It could depreciate over time. And then you have to get those skills back. So for me, I've been doing this for a long fucking time. Um, I have been role playing since I was like 14. Back in like the 2000s, late 90s, 2000s age of the internet. So I mostly started role playing in text based MUDs and Mush clients. That is so fucking ancient, they predate MMOs. These were the text based MMOs in a way, where it was just a black box with a text client, and all you did was text people back and forth in these pseudo chat rooms that were built out so you could also kill mobs. It was very much D&D inspired by, where also a little bit of a chat room as well. I joined a bunch of different actual ones. Some of them still exist to this day, and I'm surprised by it. And I also joined role playing centric ones. The ones that I joined because I am a fucking nerd were superhero based ones. That was just my jam, even before all of the Marvel movies became big and popular. So that was basically how I really got started with roleplay. And I learned a lot from those people who helped me. You still had to fill out applications, you still had to write out like what your character is good at, different stats, all this stuff. And there was one game in particular where I must have been rejected 7 times with my applications, and the staff there was a very small team, but it was one of those places that, in a way, like OSRP, it was small, but the roleplay quality was amazing. So everybody wanted to be there. They just had very high standards. Every time my application was rejected, they would give me feedback. And that's really what helped me. And whenever I'm looking at applications here, I kind of keep this in the back of my mind, like this experience that I had. Um, it was something even as simple as think about why your character would do this. Think about what about your character is meaningful and impactful. Why does this thing in their history matter to them? How can you take this thing in their history and translate it into the game as an active thing? And this was something even where I was role playing characters like Wolverine or Gambit. I had a bunch of them. And it was more about not just knowing who the character is, but having a clear understanding of what motivates them, how their flaws impact them, and what drives them. It was probably the best thing that I had ever learned. MMOs, I did roleplay a little bit in MMOs. I cannot do World of Warcraft roleplay for so many reasons, but City of Heroes, a bunch of other things I've done text-based MMO style roleplay. I was a part of journaling communities for many years. Live journal, my god, live journal. I'm dating myself again. GTA roleplay. I first started on SOE when it was 24 slots, and it was very hard to get in. So we're talking about 2017, 2018 or so. I was awful. I was really bad. I didn't know what I was doing. I very quickly learned that a lot of the things I learned from the MUDs did not translate one to one with the GTA roleplay, and I learned a lot from the people who were more experienced than me, who had all of this history and were just better at it. Also, watching Twitch and how others roleplayed helped a lot too. And this is also the time that I met Rigsy. We are both very old school. And recently I'm getting into tabletop gaming. I've been doing it for a little bit over a year now, and I've experienced both as a player and a DM, and I personally enjoy being a DM more than a player. I am an awful player. That's what I tell everybody. So that's just a little bit of like, I've been doing this for a while. So, wants, needs, flaws, and strengths. Every character has them. Every character has them to different has different values. Every character has different backgrounds. Every character has different histories. When it comes to GTA roleplay, it's a little bit different. It's kind of like the whole respect my backstory, and you don't want that to get too much in the way of having your character move forward. What I personally like is having a single paragraph of who your character is. You don't need to know line by line every single year of who they are since their birth. Just, were they good in school? Did they have a good family life? Did they get into trouble? Did something happen to them? What are they doing now? I don't have a slide for that. I should have. I did not prepare. But having at least those pieces sort of figured out, or having an idea of those pieces, can then help you figure out who your character is. And a big thing that I learned, and whenever I'm DMing for other players who are new to tabletop, I love introducing players who have never done tabletop before. I love introducing them to tabletop, and whenever they're coming up with characters, I always ask them why. Once you start asking why, you really get into the meat of who your character is and what motivates them and why does this matter? Because once you start asking why, that silly concept you had that you thought would be fun to play with may not actually work if you can't answer the why. As an example, I had a player, I play Cyberpunk, a tabletop game, and I had a player who is new to roleplay in general, realistically, but they've watched GTA roleplay, they've had some experience in MMOs and such, they never did tabletop before. And they wanted their character to be just like silly and goofy. And they wanted one of their things to be, well, I stole Johnny Silverhand's shirt. That's one of his things of claim to fame. And okay, I was like, okay, that's interesting. For those who don't know Johnny Silverhand, he's like a celebrity in the Cyberpunk universe. I asked him why. Why does that matter? Why does your character care that that happened? Why does that influence them? And this was something that they were just memeing about. But once I started asking them that, they didn't know how to respond. And it wasn't a bad thing. I will, like personally, I never look down on anybody for not being able to answer things like that. It's just trying to adjust thinking. Once they realized that they couldn't answer that, they're like, okay, you know what? Maybe I'll try something else. Maybe that's not as big of a deal as I originally thought it would be as a joke. Maybe I'll come up with a different idea. And that's what I told them to do for their homework. Just ask why. So there's also something called the Pixar method. I can share links after this. Khan Academy has a video that people at Pixar made, and it's basically their primer to storytelling. And every Pixar movie, at least back when John Lasseter was still a part of the Pixar, all of their movies have a concept of want versus need. The two conflict with each other. The character wants something, and that something is external. They want money. They want a good house. They want friendships. They want social connections. They want power, but that power can come in the form of drugs, money, guns, whatever it may be. It's external. And basically the want is a band-aid to the internal conflict of their need. There were great examples that I cannot think of right now, but with the Pixar part of that. So your character can want something, and it's basically them thinking that this will fix all of my problems. This will get me the respect. This will get me where I want to be. But what they're not acknowledging is their need. The need is the internal conflict, the internal struggle, that thing in the back of their mind or the deep well in the pit in their stomach that they're ignoring intentionally because they don't want to face it, because they're not ready to face it. And so they're using that want as the band-aid for the real issue, which is their need. So I know there was an example that I had just recently looked up, and there are a ton of examples that if you do want versus need in storytelling, so many examples to glean from. but one of them for Avatar. Katara realizes that her morality is more important than exacting revenge. She wants revenge. But when it comes to when she has the opportunity to do it and kill her mother's murderer, her need to put her own spiritual health above her desire for revenge and to accept the value of mercy that she's learned throughout her journey, that's her need. And when the need is met and the need is resolved, that want is no longer valid. So it's kind of like that's the character arc. That is what the character, once the need is, once they can figure out what they need, they can then move on. It's a little different in GTA because, I mean, your characters, once your character meets that need and they're happy, they're kind of like, you got to figure out what their next thing is. What is the next thing that they're going to struggle with? Another example is Finding Nemo. For Finding Nemo, Marlin, he wants his son to be safe. He wants Nemo to be safe, so he's overprotective. But what he needs is to realize that he has to let go, and that Nemo has to grow up at some point. Once he realizes that and that need is met, that's the end of the story. That's the end of the movie. Everyone's happy. They can go home. So when you're thinking of your characters in GTA, think of that. And also in the context of GTA, when you realize your character's need is met, that's when you can start your next arc. That's when you can start your next conflict. And that is when the next thing that is going to be their want versus need is probably going to be server influenced or roleplay influenced. You can always start with some things background, and then some things are going to be dictated just simply by the roleplay that you've experienced. Flaws and strengths. Sorry, to get some water. They could both be either internal or external. Flaws, it's what your character is bad at, but more importantly, it's how it manifests on a level where it impacts their lives. If you have a flaw of just like, oh boy, a flaw of is missing a finger, but you don't actually roleplay that out at all, it doesn't matter. That's not a real flaw. The flaw needs to get in the way. The flaw needs to interfere. The flaw needs to have some sort of impact, and it is a quirk. It could be anything from severe to maybe one of their flaws is they murdered somebody and they're hiding it, and so they can't sleep at night and they have night terrors because they're not dealing with it, which could also lead into the need of having to resolve that. They could be, as I listed here, socially awkward, where they're in social situations and they're just really uncomfortable and really bad. How you have to basically how would that manifest? Slash me's of is fiddling their thumbs. You can do emote pout 2, where they're kind of like kicking dirt and looking awkward and uncomfortable. The flaws and strengths are externally manifested for other players to hook into and see. Is your character clumsy? Well, then maybe if you're running away from the police, or if you're in trouble and you need to move, you can ragdoll randomly on the fly just to show that maybe they're trying to run up some stairs and they trip. Or maybe they could do some other emotes and such, or slash me's, or accidentally is fiddling with a knife and cuts their finger. Now you have to go to pillbox. They could be forgetful. They can come up with something happened. I kind of remember, I kind of don't. The days are blending into each other. I'm not quite sure. And forgetfulness can lead to misinformation, which could also be spicy in and of itself. They could also have addiction and rage issues. I have a caveat about this in another slide. If you're ever doing a flaw of this nature with whenever it comes to mental illness, or mental health in general, really, anything with aggression and rage, especially when you're yelling, or anything with substance abuse and addiction, please read the room. So, you never know what player on the other side of the screen has dealt with these issues in their personal lives and how it will impact them. You can check. I highly recommend checking in with them. after a scene, making sure they were okay, and soliciting feedback and saying like, hey, do I need to pull that back a little bit? I have done characters that have 2 out of the 3. I'm not comfortable with any sort of mental health, role-playing mental health issues. But I've had a character who was a drug addict, and I had to learn how to read the room so it didn't become just tedious and unfun for the other players involved. I've also been on the counter side of that, of dealing with players who had their characters be alcoholics, and my character had to then make sure they were okay. And sometimes it struck a nerve for me because I personally have family history with things of that nature, and I had to let them know, hey, I can't hang with this. So in the future, if it's me, please pull it back a little bit. Communication is very, very important when it comes to anything related to that. Do your research, especially for mental health, and just always check in. Strengths. Strengths are the one thing that I feel is tricky to do in GTA roleplay. Everyone sort of like leans on the strengths of what is mechanical. They're a good driver. They're good at shooting. And that can be good. But when it comes to strengths, make sure that you as a player are actually good at the thing before declaring, well, this is my strength. But the strength, again, it's internal or external. It could be both, of what the character's good at, but what helps them in a positive manner. So they could be charming in social interactions. They could have a great memory of just, yeah, these are the details. They could be good at money management. Having a flaw that, like, they're really bad at money management is amazing. One of my characters, because I wanted her to be a street rat, I always made a thing where she never had more than $5,000 on her. But I kind of needed stuff to do, so I would grind sometimes, or I would roleplay and make some money with others just to hang out while we were doing these different activities. And if I ever had more than $5,000, I would find an excuse to get rid of that money. Whether it was, oh, hey, you need help with your car payment? Let me help you. Or, hey, you need money for buying something at Burger Shot and you forgot all your cash? Let me pay for you. Don't worry about it. So they were giving in that way, but that was the biggest flaw. That when it came to her needing money and people looking to her like, well, can you pay? Like, do you have this for yourself? She'd be like, no, I don't have money. Other strengths: driving, social butterfly, loyalty, just things that, again, can manifest externally that other players can see and play with. This one is a bit trickier because it can be skill-based and it's mostly either skill and mechanical or social-based, especially in the concept of GTA roleplay. And I also have, let me click over some examples. So, LOL, didn't get rid of the lorem ipsum. Hey, I'm so good at this. So I have my characters here. This is what I learned from when I was doing the muds and mushes and such, how to break this stuff down. So, Ness, what does she want? What is the external band-aid that she thinks will help her through her internal conflict? She wants money. Pride is not something that can manifest internally, but when you think of the pride of the gang, repping the colors, being present, having the blue car, being seen, being visible, it comes out in that way in an external manner. Same with respect, as in an external manner. She wants people to see her and she wants people to respect her. So the way that she talks to people, the way that she interacts with people, the way that she wants to be seen as, you do not disrespect me, I can be a threat or I can be your friend. It comes out in her thinking this is the desire she has that will make her better. What she doesn't realize is she has different needs. Ness needs family. Her family, they're all, her brother is dead, her father is dead, her mom left Los Santos when she could. When she could get, she met somebody, she ran away with them. And Ness was still a young teenager at the time. She needs connection. She finds it in the gang, but is that really helpful to her? Are those the people who are really going to be there for her? Are those the people who are going to help her through her internal struggles and her issues, because she cannot really talk to those in a gang? So it's not necessarily her gang that she needs. She thinks she does, and that comes into the pride and respect. It's really people who will be there for her to help her talk and help her sort through her issues and her internal struggles. Of respect, internal. She needs to respect herself. She has very big issues as far as self-esteem. Her thinking that she's never being taken seriously enough. There's a lot of roleplay going on right now. It's very spicy that ties into this exact thing, where she feels like she can never be present enough. She can never work hard enough. She can never do enough to see the respect that she deserves. And so to her, it's a constant internal struggle of I have to fight, I have to do, there's more to do in order to get that respect. Is that true? Probably not. And she needs peace. She's seen a lot. She's done a lot. She has suffered. It's hard to live in a lower income area, an area that is has heavy gang ties, south side, east side, basically, same little piecemeal area. And it's hard for her to find inner peace. It's hard for her to just sleep at night, especially when there's external things going on. Drive-bys, helicopters, cops, lots of threats. She just wants to be happy. Well, that's not what she wants. She needs to be happy. She needs to find that internal peace and just be okay. Her strengths, she's underestimated. Those who know her, she's not underestimated by those who know her, but those who don't know her, she is very much underestimated. She is a woman who is in a gang. She's a young woman who's in a gang, and people see that in very different perspectives until they actually get to encounter Ness, so that she utilizes to the best of her ability. And she's loyal. She has done what she's needed to do for her set, for her gang family, and she is loyal to a T, and she knows that she was blooded in and she will be blooded out, and it will likely happen in a gang war at some point. And her loyalty is unflinching. So those are her strengths. How those come out in, again, strengths can be external for others to react to. How that comes out. Underestimated, when she talks to somebody who doesn't know her, she can be a bit more social. She could be more helpful. She could be more chill with them until a line is crossed, and then she shows them the real side of her and how aggressive and how angry she could be. When it comes to loyalty, she's always repping her flag. She's always got blue on her. She is always thinking about Fudge Lane, MBG, and she's always talking about it. She's always sharing information about it. She's always doing that. That's how the external could for other players to react to. Flaws, anger issues. Again, if you ever encountered Ness and it's not a great experience, she will, especially for LEO players, they have experienced her going from being okay, again, underestimated, to suddenly, very quickly, being not okay. The anger issues that I have with her, and I have to really make sure I'm okay and honing this in, she's not going to always scream. I will raise my voice, but I also realize I'm from New York City. Me raising my voice at a level 2 can be a level 11 for somebody else. So she will just hit you with just this aggressive speech pattern that suddenly and very quickly changes, and she is commanding the tone of the room. Self-esteem issues. This is more when she's by herself or when she's around those she trusts. /me's, sighs, rubs her face, looks conflicted. The way she walks, the way she deals with things. She wants to be alone sometimes. She also has a thing where this one's a little harder to express externally for her. She very much has self-esteem issues. Actually, you know what? Here's a great one. When somebody compliments her, because people compliment her all the time, she will switch up her clothing and then suddenly cover herself because she doesn't want people to see her the way that they do. She wants them to see her if they tell her she's cute or she's pretty, which has happened before. Suddenly she goes, oh no, I'm uncomfortable. She doesn't have self-esteem in that way. And she suddenly is wearing baggier clothing, baggier pants, and looking more masculine to sort of offset that kind of interaction. Lauren is kind of like a meme at this point on this server, but she has a lot of history, so I'm kind of leaning into that a little bit. Lauren is a punk. Lauren is one of the non-violent punks. She's very much an anomaly in that group. What does she want? She wants to have fun. She wants friends. She wants chaos. Like, she just wants mischief. But what does she need? Again, she also needs a family. She needs those who are going to have her back, and those who are going to keep her in line. She needs stability. She lives on the streets of Vinewood. She doesn't have a lot, so she doesn't even have a job. She doesn't have, like, if she needs alcohol, she's going to run into a store, grab them off the shelves, just for a cop interaction too, and she's going to get the fuck out of there. She needs responsibility. She doesn't want to take responsibility for anything, and if she can sneak her way out of something, she will. She's done raids on the Uwu Cat Cafe where she's tagged up the entire place, and when the cops have come to question her about it because she was on the cameras, she's going to absolutely thwart any sense of responsibility at all. But she thinks that she wants to have fun, friends, and chaos, but what she really needs in order for her to fix her shit is stability and responsibility. Her strength, she's social, she's fun, and she finds mischief in anything. If there's anything that she can mess with and make it what she perceives as fun, she will do it. Stealing stop signs, running around kidnapping stray cats and chickens and all of these other ridiculous things. Slashing tires. Yeah, she just doesn't want to deal with her issues, and she wants to have fun. Flaw is lack of responsibility, and she's not a heavy hitter. The way that this comes out, and it's been great with the punks. Wendy and Nezka, are heavy hitters. When they need to show up, they show up, and they can very much flip from being, again, chill to we have to get shit done. Lauren is not that person, and she shies away from it, and she's uncomfortable with it. When they tell her certain things of this happened, or we're dealing with this now, she suddenly is like, oh, I don't want to, and she runs away from it. So she's not a heavy hitter, and in a way, in that same aspect, she lacks responsibility. Gage, chief of VMS. Lots of emotional torture here. What does she want? She wants alcohol. That's how Gage deals with her problems, and she is a character that does have the flaw of addiction. I'm very careful with this one. She also wants to be a workaholic and just throw herself in the job constantly, all the time. This way she doesn't have to deal with her other internal issues and problems and other things. If she can focus on work, if she can focus on just getting these things done, then she doesn't have to deal with her problems. And it's just sort of like the external, this makes me feel better. What does she need? She needs stability at home. Her and Deputy Commissioner McNeil, they're okay right now, but they have a rocky and tumultuous relationship. This is something that Neon and I worked on and made sure we were both okay before agreeing to. And that can manifest as he's always working as well. If she needs him, he's not available. If he needs her, she's not available. That they might have, not an argument, we don't do that, but if he says something that's very LEO cop-oriented of, well, fuck those criminals, and she doesn't agree with that, this is her closest friend and ally, she needs him, and she needs him to get on board with what she's bringing to the table as far as the way she sees the world. She needs inner peace, and this is related to her backstory or things that she sees on the streets as well. She needs to find peace with, there was a medic who perma'd, and she wasn't there for them. They were attacked at Pillbox. Anytime a medic is held hostage or attacked, it kind of like chips away at her that she can't be there and she can't help. She wants to. Or if she sees somebody on the streets being mistreated, she struggles with that. And it manifests in a way that she can't find her inner peace. The issue with her is that the inner peace will never come because it comes in, it's so varied. She also needs friendships. Because she's such a workaholic, she just buries herself in alcohol sometimes. It's hard for her to make friendships. She doesn't want friendships because they're a distraction and she'd rather just throw herself at work and focus, but that's what she needs. She needs connections. She needs people to care for her. She needs people who can reach out to her. That's not her husband, so she'll be okay. Her strengths are her conviction, responsibility, and helpfulness. How this manifests on the server when, especially with the LEOs, If cops are going to be disrespectful in the house of Pillbox or anything with EMS, she will stand her ground. Her conviction is that everybody deserves care, everybody deserves to be treated with respect, and if you don't do that, she will speak up. Even if it's out of turn, she's going to. She's the chief of EMS, so she has to be responsible, and she will also say, she's the first one to say, hey, I screwed up. I should be hit with this. Don't take it out on anybody else. And she's helpful. She's met with different people, like different characters who are criminals, who were, to them, mistreated by LEOs, or are struggling with their own internal conflict. And she always tries to see the good in people. So she's forgiving. She extends a hand. She will meet with people in secret just to say, hey, I heard that this is going on. Please tell me you're okay. What is happening? So that's the way that I interact with others with her. Flaws, addiction, mentioned again. I don't actually roleplay this out on the server, but she talks about it. I will never have her walking around drunk, but I might have her, like, she gets uncomfortable if somebody offers her wine, and literally she's been given wine by different characters while they were at Pillbox, and she's like, oh god, no, I don't want to touch this. She'll talk about overcoming her addiction, of just not being actively in the throes of it, but always with the mindset that it's there in the back of her mind. Or if it's a very stressful day, she'll be like, man, I need a drink. I can't, I shouldn't, I know this, but I'm just gotta vocalize it. She stresses out easily. She can manage her stress, but she stresses out easily. I do a status, looks stressed. Whenever she shows up on a scene and it's been a hectic and crazy shift, she will let people know, hey, give me a second, I am not okay, and I just need to get through this. And lots of slash me's of the way that she sighs, the way that she walks, the way that she deals with things. Another flaw is she can't easily ask for help. Again, me's, statuses, and she struggles to the point where Pillbox characters see this a lot, where they ask her, are you okay? Do you need somebody to talk to? McNeil does it too. Hey, are you all right? It's been a crazy shift. I'm just checking in on you. And she will always deny, and she will always say yes. But as she is, her body language shows otherwise. She might have, like, her lip twitches just to show that she's lying. Or she looks like she sighs and suddenly looks really exhausted and is thinking for a second and is silent for a moment, like she's thinking it over, like she wants to ask, but can't. And so it's all of these things that manifest in a way that other players can then get the hint. She's very much she is less verbose in that way, but other players can get the hint with that. So those are my characters. And that's how I play them. But I also got other ones too. Rapunzel, Punisher, Bruce Wayne. These are all great ones to just glean from. Any character from pop culture, once you learn how to break down the wants, needs, strengths, and flaws, it is almost formulaic. And I'm not going to really go into these in depth since I went to in depth with my characters. But really easy to tell. Rapunzel, she wants freedom and adventure. What does she need? She needs answers to questions about her history and what's going on. Her strengths, she's caring and positive. She's creative. Her flaws, she is absolutely naive. She's clumsy, and she cares what others think about her because she doesn't know otherwise. Punisher, he wants revenge, and in a way, he wants to be a loner. He doesn't want connections. He wants to be left alone. He has this drive and this need to fulfill, and people will get in his way. What does he need, though? He needs inner peace. He can't find that until he resolves his own issues around the death of his family and those close to him and those that he was in service with. He needs connections that's more than just bargaining chips or people who will give him different resources. He also needs stability. He does not have any sense of stability in his life. He's constantly moving, doing, and he is working all the time. And he has thrown himself into this persona. He is not a person anymore. His strengths, he's cunning. He has combat training. He also has no ties. No ties is a strength because he could just do what he wants without sense of remorse and without somebody telling him no. His flaws, again, no ties. Strengths can also be flaws. The flaw to having no ties is he also doesn't have anyone to tell him no. When he shouldn't do something, there's no one there to be the angel on his shoulder or the morality meter to be like, whoa, hey, cut it out. What's going on? Chill. He has anger issues and he is absolutely haunted by his past. And the way that that can come out is he doesn't sleep well. He overexerts himself. He sees flashbacks of his family and it haunts him. So he leans towards smoking, drinking. He gets more agitated in those moments. And others would see that. Bruce Wayne, not Batman. Batman's easy. Bruce Wayne, what does he want? He wants respect and to live up to the Wayne name because it's on his shoulders. But what does he need? He needs to resolve the internal conflict of his family. That is a never-ending thing for Bruce Wayne. He can't resolve that. It was something traumatic that happened to him as a child, and he has no idea how to cope with it. He refuses to go to therapy, and anytime people bring up his father or his mother, there's always a sense of guilt, and there's always a sense of wrong because of how everything happened. And he feels a sense of responsibility that it was because of him. Strengths, he's rich. Being rich is totally a fucking strength. He could buy people, he can buy things, all this stuff. We also know it feeds into Batman, but either way. He's very mindful, and he's very thoughtful about how he approaches things, how he talks to people, and how his persona of this rich playboy of Gotham City is perceived. And he's also cunning. He's very secretive, and as a flaw, again, rich could be a flaw. And in the way that it's a flaw, people are targeting him because he's rich. Or because he's rich, if he loses that money, he has no idea what to do without it. He is enigmatic and aloof. Bruce Wayne has a reputation for being weird. He's not like the other playboys. He doesn't talk to the press in the same way, and he doesn't wheel and deal with government officials in the way that other playboys with influential political and economic power do. He's kind of weird. He's kind of doing his own thing, and it very much is a reflection of his need, the lack of resolution around the shit that happened when he was a kid with his family. Flaws are awesome. They're so awesome. We love flaws. Flawed characters are just so much more interesting than not flawed characters, and I think this is something that's really hard to do in GTA roleplay. But they make characters complex and they drive really interesting roleplay. Nobody is flawless. Even the smallest thing. They have bad breath. It's halitosis. It's genetic. It's a thing. So when they interact with other people, maybe that's a flaw that impacts them socially and it adds to the social awkwardness. They make a character unique. And they, in my opinion, what I learned is that flaws, you either should have more of them or they should be heavier in a way that outweighs the strengths and severity. Flawed characters that are not perfect, they're not gods, they're not the end-all, be-all, best-all, they drive interaction. My character is angry as a flaw, so she's going to react brashly. That's going to get her in trouble with different groups, different people, and the cops. My character has a struggle when it comes to being able to talk about things that hurt them emotionally. So that's a flaw. And people notice it by them going off on their own, or she's being aloof, or the way that I use emotes and /me's. And again, my note here of read the room with flaws related to anger, substance abuse, and mental health issues. Please, please, please. If you don't know what that means, or if you need help, if you want any suggestions and recommendations, my DMs are always open. I love talking character concepts. It's very easy for us, especially in GTA roleplay, because the world doesn't change. We make the change. But it's still a static sandbox. It's sometimes hard, and it sometimes feels like you could be stuck. Like, my character's feeling this right now. I acknowledge it, but I don't know what to do with it. It happens to all of us, and it's totally okay. If you ever need help with anything like that, always DM me, and I am more than happy to, come up with ideas, different concepts, and ask you questions of, okay, why do they feel this way? What is going on? And then we can think about it together. Strengths. GTA strengths are a mechanical crutch. driving, shooting, all of that. It's easy to put that in your character's backstory, but also respect my backstory is I personally don't like respect my backstory too much because if you're not good at it, it's hard to really respect. If you say my character is a great shot because they were trained in the military, because they have all of this experience, but you're actually not a good shot, it's hard to then justify that as a strength. But that doesn't mean it needs to be the end all be all. It could be something where you can shift it of, well, my character is a great driver. And then you come on the server and driving here is different. So you go, oh, well, my character was a good driver. And now they have to relearn. Something happened, or the way that the way that the systems work, they're not used to it. You could practice when it comes to the mechanics. If you do the my character's a great shooter and you actually are a terrible shot, practice. Practice. And again, strengths can be internalized and externalized. So yeah. I'm pretty sure it's my last slide, and I'm pretty sure that's all I got. If I do the next one. Oh, I did it! So good at this. Character arcs. So when you're thinking of wants, needs, flaws, and strengths, and how it impacts your character, and what to do with your character, that's great on a day-to-day. When you're thinking about, like, okay, what about the long-term version of this? There are different arcs that you can go on. Your character can have a positive changing arc, where they're in a bad place, and they're changing for the better. The roleplay that they're experiencing is, well, their needs are being met, and so their wants, the band-aid, is being ripped off. They're improving. That's a positive arc. And the positive arc, once it's resolved, your character can hang there for a bit. But it doesn't have to be permanent. They can be in a positive place. Something can happen on the server. Their best friend is killed by a gang. Now, they're going on a negative arc. They want revenge. They're not acknowledging that they have to cope with the loss of their best friend, but so their want is revenge. Their want is justice. Now suddenly they're flipping into the negative arc. A flat arc is basically your character's still in that positive place, your character's still good, and your character is just kind of resolving things on that level. A flat arc could be something they want to get good at driving. They link up with different crews who are good at that. They link up with different groups, and sort of they were resolving something internal, but it's not in a grand, sweeping, emotional conflict way. The negative arc of disillusionment is also one where it's more social. They had a belief in the system, and suddenly the system fucked them over in such a way that it impacted them. Now they're going from a place of being a positive. Maybe they were falsely ID'd at the scene of a crime, or someone planted fake evidence. So they have to take this fall. It's very easy to do. They believe in the system. They believe in justice. But everything that's lined up with how this was done is pointing that they murdered somebody, even though they physically didn't. Somebody was able to plant enough evidence to make everything look like it was them. They go to court, it doesn't pan out, and now they have this prison sentence. Disillusionment, the system failed them. How does that look when they get out? Are they going to now suddenly be angry? Are they not going to trust lawyers? Are they not going to trust cops? Are they going to... I would not lean vigilante at all in GTA roleplay because that could screw up so many stories. But are they going to try to find information on what the hell happened and who did it to try to get back at them? My caveat about vigilantes, it's a very fine line between the back and forth of conflict, which I'll cover in another workshop, versus, well, I'm just gonna go get them. But either way, that's an example of disillusionment. everything is great, everything's positive. They have they have a good job, they're a legal citizen, they have good friends, they're in a relationship with somebody, and suddenly that person cheats on them. Suddenly their friends betray them. It doesn't have to be criminal for them to go down the line of disillusionment, because now their whole world has changed. The people they trusted the most have betrayed them in a way that it was a social conflict. And what are they going to do about it? Are they going to just simply not trust people again? Is that going to be a thing where suddenly they're going to vet people more before they let them in and they're going to be more closed off and standoffish? Are they swearing off of relationships after this? How does that look? So, yeah, these are different concepts, arcs, and different things to think about when you're thinking of characters and how these things can impact them for making really cool stories. This is my last slide. Yeah, it's my last slide. Okay, cool. I did it. We got there. And I talked a lot. Does anyone have any questions, any thoughts, or anything else? That is a resounding amount of silence. So I'm going to take that as a no. If you ever want, again, my DMs are open. If you have any questions or anything else, I could also link resources in the OffScript channel for things that I use and have used in the past. But yeah, hopefully you all were able to glean some information, learn, and hopefully, you can adapt this into your roleplay on the server with your characters, and you could do awesome things with it. So with that, I'm gonna stop streaming. Thanks, guys. I appreciate you coming, and I appreciate you hanging out and doing this. This is the first one I've ever done, so that was very nerve-wracking.
He was very good.
Thank you.
You've also just made me
We're all
realize
uploading you in voice chat.
one of my characters definitely needs a little bit more step back and think.
Oh, thank you, Marbaka. You got the link. Okay, cool. I was not paying attention to voice chat at all.
That was probably for the best.
Probably.
just to kind of keep on track and keep things going.
It's hard sometimes. Like, Ness originally, she was not meant to be my story character. She was just a fuck around and find out character. She was supposed to drive conflict. Then roleplay happened. It was like, oh, well, shit, we're doing this. And then I had to do a lot of research and I had to figure out who she is and what she is because I had nothing for her. She was a blank paper. So, like, it everybody, it hits everybody.
We love it when it's just like, oh, yeah, derp, 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 and now it's serious.
Yes.
Can change easily. Same case for me when I made Ivan, like 8 months ago, or 7, whatever. He was meant to be a goof that I'd explore like crim mechanics on, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And just because of how I ended up putting him out there, instead of that, he instantly turned into someone serious and enigmatic, and I did not plan that at all.
Yeah.
Just recently, with all the very deep shit that's Jack's been going through, Jacqueline, I am calling this the Chrysalis arc or whatever, because her whole butterfly motif and whatever. But this is definitely a big change for her, having just made a big leap, and I'm leaving things out because meta.
That's awesome. I love it. Oh, especially with yep. There, I'm not gonna say it in this chat just in case, but yeah, the chrysalis analogy totally makes sense on such a deeper level too.
Tease.
Hmm?
Did you like go over, because I was kind of in and out, I was doing chores and making food and stuff. Did you go over at any point like wants and needs of a character drastically changing from an arc?
Mhm.
Okay, cool.
I recorded it too.
Cool.
Swirly has a question in the voice chat.
I saw that.
What was the question? Sorry, I'm scrolling up.
She has got any tips for coming up with character stuff on the fly? Like if someone challenges your character in some way and you haven't really thought about that angle yet, do you have any tips for ways to come up with reactions off the cuff? Words are had, GDI. Had indeed.
That's fantastic.
I actually was going to say something similar to that right before I saw her question.
Tips for coming up with character stuff on the fly. Like if someone challenges your character in some way and you haven't really thought about that angle yet, do you have any tips for ways to come up with reactions off the cuff? Ooh.
Improv is not easy.
No, it's not.
Something very minor that I can throw out from my experience is one time, like very, very early on in my experience and stuff here, probably less than a month in the server, Jack ended up on a boat with some people. And I'm like, you know what might be fun? If I roll and see whether there's seasickness involved.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a fantastic way.
So, nudge, nudge, hint, hint. Jack has seasickness and is very bad.
See,
go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I've done that similarly where when Ness had to deal with her probation, I genuinely had no idea how she was going to react. And I kept thinking about it. I had a while to think about it, but it was just nothing felt right in her reaction. So, I left it to dice. And that's what happened with Komie. It was a failed dice roll. It's like, well, that's how she reacts. That honestly, I think rolling dice in those situations is not a bad idea. If you know how to manage dice rolls well, and
That's
swirly,
what I was
you do.
gonna say. Yeah.
Yeah. If it's something where it's like, okay, what I personally do, I use a d6 just because it limits my options. One is always a critical failure of, okay, if I'm being challenged in a way that's social, didn't you get an natty one for that? Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did. That turned out really spicy. So if it's a social interaction and I have to react, and I'm like, fuck, I don't know how my character is going to react. There's this, and this. Nat 1 is always going to be the worst reaction. Whether that's she starts blurting out really awkward things and not info dumping. Please don't ever info dump. But spilling tea on things publicly that they shouldn't, or having a panic attack, being super nervous, being really clumsy and awkward, and suddenly, like in movies where you see that person, they think they're cool and they got it. Nope, don't got it. Nope, not at all. 2 through 4 is kind of like, okay, I'm nervous, I have some anxiety, I can do /me's around it to convey it, but my character's not in full panic mode, but they are uncomfortable with the situation. And 5 and 6, they're chill, they got it, they're okay. That's usually how I handle those situations. Leans towards Sosa awkwardly, bro, don't even.
Can I say something?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, what I usually do for figuring out how a character would react to any kind of situation is I get out of my own head. If I start thinking about it, then it becomes very mechanical, and usually the reaction is either late or wrong. Uh, but if you just get out of your own head, because you're already role playing the character, so you're already in their mindset. So usually your reaction is going to be the correct one.
Yep.
This takes me back to Jack's reaction with Mercedes getting hurt for the first time and literally just going on a no point at all, just a drive at maximum speed, and she doesn't care what's in her way. She flat out got into a car accident, knocked some dude on his ass in a fist fight, and kept on driving. It got serious, and then she fell. She fell outside of the out of her apartment and was actually met by one of her friends, and they actually took her to pillbox because she was very injured. and she beat herself up over the fact that one of her friends got hurt.
Something for me that I've always done when it comes to I say always, something I've done over the past couple of years when it comes to those improv, like spur of the moment decisions, is if it's a character I've been playing for a decent amount of time, for the most part, if you've been playing a character for a while, you have a general idea of who they are as far as personality, as far as mentality, as far as how their base level norm is. So when something is presented to the character that you haven't prepped for me, if I have a general understanding of who the character is, I go with my immediate character gut reaction. So what I mean by that is when I'm on Gizmo, obviously Gizmo is like a polar opposite to who I am in real life. I'm not a dickhead that likes to watch people suffer. So when I am presented with a moment that, IRL, I would do something completely different. I go with my immediate like whatever my gut is in that exact moment, I run with it. So, for example, if it's someone disrespects Gizmo and his immediate gut reaction is to smack him in the face, but IRL, I'd be like, no, we'll talk about it. Like, no, Gizmo smacks him in the face. He goes that I don't let myself hesitate on the overthinking. I go gut reaction that we're going to do it, whether that has consequences, whether that's a good thing, what's a bad thing. Obviously, sometimes you can be more methodical and be more, like strategic with your planning. But when you're presented with something that you're not prepared for, in my opinion, it's best to just go with your gut. Go with that immediate. What is the first thing that pops in your head that the character that makes sense for the character? Now, if it's more of like a um, I need to determine like some element of their personality that I haven't thought about yet. Like for example, what Melon was saying with like seasickness. Um, it's a little bit different. It's a little more tricky. Um, because obviously, your gut reaction might not be the most applicable in that moment. So if it's like someone comes up to you and presents you with a new social dynamic that you haven't thought about for your character that might track into their backstory, or even better yet, somebody asks you a question about your backstory and you haven't thought about it, the best thing that you can do is keep it in that moment when you haven't prepped or planned for it, is keep it informative, but don't be descript. So when I first made McNeil on my very first RP server, and granted I was still learning RP at the time, but I had to do this because I didn't understand what RP was. I didn't understand how GTRP functioned. I didn't understand any of that. So I walked myself into a scenario where I was asked questions about my character, and I had absolutely nothing written. I didn't know who this character was because I hadn't written anything, and so I was just giving very vague. Oh, I'm from back east, or I have a medium-sized family, whatever. Very just you're answering their questions so the RP is not cut off and dead, but you're not locking yourself into a corner of I am now required to. Oh, I now have this many siblings and I have these names like if you just blurt that out in the moment without prepping for it after the fact, then you have now told someone, "Oh, I have a sister named Irene." And then 3 months later, somebody goes, "Oh, I'm an only." You say, "I'm an only child." Like, wait a minute, you told me you have, and now you're kind of in this awkward moment where you've walked yourself into one avenue of RP that you hadn't prepped for. So don't lock yourself into it when you're in those moments and the stress is kind of high. You have to kind of be on you have to immediately kind of react to a question or a scenario. Don't lock yourself into a corner of I am now required for this thing because that's what I said. Be a little more vague or nondescript, and then once the RP is over and you're like, okay, I now need to kind of think about what is my character's sister, what was my character's family like, where are they originally from, and then once you think about it, you either need to write it down if you're a note taker, or remember it, or a storyboard, or whatever you do to help kind of plan or track your character. Now you can kind of dive into that when you're not put on the spot and you got to make a decision right then and there, and then you're panicking because you don't know what to say. As the KISS method is definitely a good thing to remember. Keep it simple, stupid.
Yep.
If I can tack something on with that, but like when you're like creating the concept for your character, like Jack, I had two major events in her life, or two major big things. One is definitely the fact that her family issues between, father, mother, and immediate family, and then also her first set of a found family. And that is where everything really climaxed to the point of how she got to LS. Basically, I just found key points, ran with those, and those key points usually hold pretty good. It's more the stuff you don't ever think about
Mm-hmm.
that's like, oh, huh, well,
I did similar with Ness. Again, she was supposed to be the fuck around, find out conflict character who didn't have story, and I was just suddenly thrown into story real fast, real early. And then when she took over MBG, suddenly I had no idea what to do as a player. And I had never done this level of roleplay before. I've done gang roleplay before, but always as a member. And when I was a leader of a former gang, it wasn't.
We don't
something...
talk about that.
We don't talk about that, yeah. And it was not.
Don't talk about that.
It was not this serious. It was totally different. So I really had to take the time to figure out who she was, what she wanted, and everything else. And the way that I brought that out on the spot was that Ness wasn't sure. She suddenly did this action where she was able to take over the gang and was like, fuck, what do I do? I've never done this before. I've never been a leader. Her father was in the set and all this other stuff. Like, she's like, I don't know.
That is the most apt description, Swirls. Like, that is the best fucking way to
dog
put it.
that caught the cart. Yeah, like, now what? So I roleplayed that out where she would just hang out on the block and just kind of be present in her blue car and just continue to do her thing. And as that was going on internally, I was like just trying to think of who she is, what she is now, and started slowly over time thinking again of why. Why does this matter to her so much that she wanted this? And then I was able to fill in the blanks. Okay, well, what if her dad was a part of the set? Because she grew up on Fudge. She grew up around this. She's comfortable with this. What if her older brother was a part of this too? So now there's a stake of family. Okay, that's something. Maybe that's what this is. What if she's really aggressive because she has to prove herself? So maybe she leans the gang this way or that way. So, and it just started filling in the gaps on its own. But when you're caught in that moment, I very much like role playing out the hesitation and the confusion and the I don't know, because your character won't always have the answer. And it's okay that your character doesn't have the answer. Sometimes your character has to work through the shit themselves to figure it out. Hesitation is also part of human shit. Oh, absolutely. And for the longest time, I would have her hesitate with certain interactions. And there would be interactions where, like, she would meet with Sosa or Gizmo and just be awkward because she's like, I've never done meets like this. Like, I've been present at them, but now I'm in charge. What if I say the wrong thing? What if I do something and suddenly they're going to attack me? Like, the spiral would start with her because it was me as a player spiraling, going, I don't know what I'm doing. So I just manifested it as the character until she figured out her shit. I figured out who she is with filling in those gaps, kind of like how Melon said, and it kind of worked out.
So I have now a complete 180 kind of topic, but say you're kind of mechanically okay at one of, you know, the gameplay aspects in GTA or any of the games that you're role playing in. So, you know, you're a great driver or you're a pretty good crack shot at with a pistol or with any of the firearms. How do you pull yourself back as that character that you're making a concept for and say, I'm going to be bad at this now?
You have to force yourself to do it.
Yeah.
Constantly. Yeah.
You quite literally have to like if I'm so if you some of you guys might have met Mac. I have a British character named Mac Quintus who he's my derp. He is a silly fuck around character. He has no story, no backstory, anything. He literally exists to be silly and to give cops things to do and interact with funny people. But I've tried to play him as a bad driver, but I'm a halfway decent driver on my other characters. I have a pretty good track record of getting away and I can handle the cars all right and things like that. But Mac is inherently supposed to be a bad driver. So I will quite literally drive poorly. And what I mean by that is I will force myself to make like just slalom through a street because he can't keep his hand on the steering wheel. I will hold the e-brake too long when I go around a corner, so I spin out. I'll run into things. I'll take myself down back alleys I know are dead ends. Like, you quite literally have to consciously go, I know that this is going to be a bad idea, but my character doesn't know that, so I'm going to force myself to do it. Or I know that this is not how you drive a car, but I'm going to do it this way because my character doesn't know how to drive a car, or whatever. You literally have to forcibly do it. Now, when it comes to guns, this is actually something that I learned from Silent Sentry. So I don't know if any of you guys know who that is. He's an OG role player, been around for a hot minute. He actually is how I built most of my Vago RP off of. Something that he said on his stream one time is that when he gets in gunfights, he purposefully does not aim at people. He will look in their direction and he just shoots. He's not trying to actually hit them. He's trying to put bullets downrange in that general direction because obviously you're trying to hit the person from you're in character, you're trying to hit them, but out of character, you're trying to prolong a gunfight. You're trying to make it last longer than 3 seconds. So if you want a gunfight to last longer, or you want your person to be bad at aiming, purposefully don't aim at them, or purposefully aim it in somewhere else. So for example, if you're just on a street and you're interacting with another player and you're shooting at each other, don't actually aim at them. Aim to the right or to the left or the above or down, or if you're shooting from a vehicle, just kind of look your camera that way and just start shooting. Don't really think about where the bullets are going. Don't really think about what's happening. Just focus on the cinematic of, I am shooting in your direction. You are shooting in my direction. This is now a shootout, but we're not intending to down each other. We're intending to produce story out of this. That's why whenever a lot of people say guns are anti-RP, I disagree. I think they are a great tool for roleplay, but I do not believe that they are anti-roleplay. I think that if they're used in one way or another, then they immediately become they can shut down RP very, very quickly. I can't really think of. I mean, obviously, if you're bad at lock picking and stuff, that's pretty easy because on our server, you just hit
Miss
the
it.
wrong number or hit you just basically just you futz it. It just kind of depends on what mechanic you want to be bad at, and then it comes down to how do you want them to be bad at it. Are they nervous, so they're fucking it up because they're antsy and they're too edgy and they've got too much anxiety going on, or are they just a really bad shot because they have bad eyesight, or are they a bad driver because they never learned how to drive? You have to kind of establish what you're bad at, but why you're bad at it, and then that can kind of help you figure out, well, maybe they're good at driving, they just don't know Los Santos, so they don't know the streets. So you just kind of forcibly take yourself on routes that don't really make sense because you want them to not be familiar with the lay of the land. Or do you actually want them to be bad at driving? Maybe they know the city really well, they just really can't control a car. How about managing saying yes to an RP situation while staying true to character? Ooh, that's a fucking tough one.
I think the key is that the phrase is yes and. People forget the and
Yep.
part. You're supposed to steer the story with it. So you can agree to a situation, but still steer it in a different direction that is more towards your character.
Or no, but
I just realized we're kind of
Exactly.
moving into next week's topic.
Which one is next week?
I looked at the
I have
events.
2
Next
of
week
them.
is conflict and combat scenarios.
Yep. Yeah. I got a whole bunch of stuff for that. We could talk about that next
I
week.
gotta collaborate with you on that one still.
Do you?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I guess not. Never mind. I'll see you guys the week after. Apparently,
so she moved on without
He
you.
doesn't want my help. All right, peace out. I'll just see y'all later.
Get yours ready. You have to do yours, the organized one.
Mine ties into yours though.
But it's different.
Barely.
No, we'll talk. Nope, yours is different.
Next week
This is a great demonstration of conflict.
The one after one.
You do not want to see our admin discussions, but there's just. Is this
McNeil and Gage? Yes, it is.
Oh no.
This is McNeil and Gage. This is Lauren and Paco. This is Gizmo and Ness. This is just